Mr. Trump, Dr. Carson just referenced the single most important job of the president, the command, the control, and the care of our nuclear forces. And he mentioned the triad. The B-52s are older than I am. The missiles are old. The submarines are aging out. It's an executive order. It's a commander-in-chief decision. What's your priority among our nuclear triad?
Well, first of all, I think we need somebody absolutely that we can trust, who's totally responsible, who really knows what he or she is doing.
New criticism for something he did on the campaign trail last night in South Carolina while defending his debunked claim that he saw thousands of Muslims celebrate the collapse of the Twin Towers here in New York. He appeared to mock a reporter with a disability. Take a look.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
That reporter he is talking about is Serge Kovaleski, who now works.
That is so powerful and so important. And one of the things that I'm frankly most proud of is that in 2003, 2004, I was totally against going into Iraq because you're going to destabilize the Middle East. I called it very strongly, and it was very important. But we have to be extremely vigilant and extremely careful when it comes to nuclear. Nuclear changes the whole ballgame. Frankly, I would have said, get out of Syria, get out. If we didn't have the power of weaponry today, the power is so massive that we can't just leave areas that 50 years ago or 75 years ago, we wouldn't care. It was hand-to-hand combat. The biggest problem this world has today is not President Obama with global warming, which is inconceivable. This is what he's saying. The biggest problem we have today is nuclear proliferation, and having some maniac, having some madman go out and get a nuclear weapon. That's, in my opinion, that is the single biggest problem that our country faces
Of the
right
three
now.
legs of the triad, though, do you have a priority? Because I want to go to Senator Rubio after that. And
I
ask
think to
him.
me, nuclear is just the power, the devastation is very important.
No sanctions relief?
We will never give you back your money. We will never
Period.
give you back your $150 billion. You're never getting that money back. That's number one. Number two, before we start negotiations, you have to give us our 3 prisoners. Now it's 4. They are going to be such a wealthy, such a powerful nation. They're going to have nuclear weapons. They are going to take over parts of the world that you wouldn't believe. And I think it's going to lead to nuclear holocaust.
Middle East, we're not using a nuclear weapon.
I would never say that. I would never take any of my cards off the table.
How about Europe? We won't use it in Europe.
I'm not going to take it off the table.
You might use it in Europe?
No, I don't think so. But I'm not
just
taking,
say it. I'll never use a nuclear weapon in Europe.
I am not taking cards off the table. I'm not going to use nukes, but I'm not taking any cards off the table.
The trouble is this
Military advice right now.
Well, I watch the shows. I mean, I really see a lot of great. You know, when you watch your show and all of the other shows, and you have the generals, and you have certain people.
But is there somebody?
He doesn't even know his full name. And Bolton was not a military person. He never served in the military. Of course, he's a chicken hawk, right? He was unbelievably our UN ambassador. He's the guy who said he'd like to blow up 10 floors of the UN. He was Bush's UN ambassador. Couldn't even get confirmed by the Senate because he was so wild and radical. He's like, yeah, he's my military advisor, that Bolton guy on Fox.
Donald Trump offering new details on his plan to fight ISIS.
ISIS is taking over a lot of the oil in certain areas of Iraq. And I said, you take away their wealth. You go and knock the hell out of the oil, take back the oil. We take over the oil.
On NBC's Meet the Press, Trump was adamant how he would do it.
What you're talking about is ground troops, maybe 25,000.
We're going to circle it. We're going to have so much money.
A Trump military critic says not so fast.
You just don't go into another country and steal their national wealth, which would, in fact, be what he's suggesting we do.
The just retired top Army general had issue with Trump as well.
When you hear Donald Trump say, we should just move in with our troops and take their oil and bomb the Iraqi oil fields and take the oil away from ISIS, does anything like that even remotely have military utility?
See, there's limits to military power. And so we can have an outcome, but again, is it the problem we've had over the last, do we achieve sustainable outcome? It's about sustainable outcome.
So you disagree with Donald Trump?
Yes, that we just go in and bomb the oil fields and take them over. Also a violation of international law. And Mr. Trump may have a lot of lawyers in the Trump Corporation, but I don't think they're going to be able to get him out of The Hague when he's tried for that kind of a plan.
Where does Trump get his military advice?
Well, I watch the
Look
shows.
like under a Trump administration.
Well, one thing they look like, first of all, I get along very well. They pay me millions of dollars for apartments, okay? I like that. Saudi Arabia makes $1 billion a day, okay? They make $1 billion a day. Saudi Arabia, if it weren't for us, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't exist. They should pay us. It's like Kuwait. When Kuwait had the problem with Saddam Hussein, like the ultimate problem, they were taken over. We go in, we fight.
We were paid for that war. They did. We had other countries that.
David Cameron,
that
his criticized proposal comes to you. Benjamin Netanyahu comes to you. He's criticized the proposal. The leaders of Jordan and Egypt and Turkey come to you and say, we want to help you in the fight against ISIS. We can't do it if that ban is in place. What do you do?
I disagree with them. I think it's going to be even better. I think if the I would not care that much, to be honest with you, whether it goes in or doesn't go in. I wouldn't care.
But how could you not care? Okay, wait, all right. If Ukraine is in NATO, that would mean that when Russia goes into Ukraine, which it is certainly alleged to have done, we would have to go to war with Russia. That would be a very big deal.
Who are you talking to consistently, since we have some dire foreign policy issues percolating around the world right now? Who are you consulting with consistently so that you're ready on day one?
I'm speaking with myself, number one, because I have a very good brain, and I've said a lot of things. My primary consultant is myself, and I have, I have a good instinct for this stuff.
How would you do?
While John McCain was being tortured in a POW camp in Vietnam.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
Trump spent the war in fashionable New York City nightclubs, having received a deferment from service for bone spurs in his foot. Which one? He doesn't remember.
Now, according to the Veterans in Command President Larry Robertson, the group sent off a request to Trump over a year ago asking for a donation for the cash-strapped organization that deals with assisting homeless vets. But they received nothing from the billionaire businessman until last week, when a bumper sticker came in the mail with a handwritten note reading, "Unfortunately, we were unable to make donations from the campaign." He sent bumper stickers that say, "Make America Great Again."
Now, they're homeless veterans. It's not like they're going to put it on their cars. So he just raised, according to him, a ton of money for veterans. And he's like, no soup for you. I'm not giving you anything. But you could help by getting out there and working for me. Wow, we really appreciate it. Remember, there's the same guy that in 91 and 2004 is on the record as trying to kick veterans and oftentimes wounded veterans off of Fifth Avenue in front of his fancy buildings. And they were working. They were operating those stands, the food stands, right? And he's like, it's cluttering up Fifth Avenue. We have high-priced clientele here, and we can't have these veterans with their food stands. I
have been a co-author to some of the most eloquent and thoughtful American political speeches of our time. And so I want to begin with your analysis of the Donald Trump press conference today and what it was we were watching.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we saw the man-child running for president throw a temper tantrum, which is what he does when someone tries to expose that he's a pathological liar. And what he does is he attacks people and he targets people. He targets the press, he targets federal judges. And I think that the difference is right now he's targeting people with his big mouth and his Twitter account. But what happens if he becomes president and he has at his disposal the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, and America's nuclear arsenal, right? Like, this is a man who is going to take people's press credentials away. He's threatened to open up libel laws so people can sue the media. I mean, it's entertaining to watch now, but when you give this guy power and he throws temper tantrums like this and is exposed as a liar.
In 1999, you said you were, quote, very pro-choice, even supporting partial birth abortion. You favored an assault weapons ban as well. In 2004, you said in most cases you identified as a Democrat. Even in this campaign, your critics say you often sound more like a Democrat than a Republican, calling several of your opponents on this stage things like clowns and puppets. When did you actually become a Republican?
Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands,
who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person. Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump.
Mexico, Vicente Fox, he said today, and I'm quoting him, he said, "I'm not going to pay for that, quote, effing wall." So if you don't get an actual check from the Mexican government for $8 or $10 or $12 billion, whatever it will cost, how are you going to make them pay for the wall?
I will, and the wall just got 10 feet taller, believe me. It's got 10 feet taller. I saw him make the statement. I saw him use the word that he used. I can only tell you, if I would have used even half of that word, it would have been national scandal. This guy used a filthy, disgusting word on television, and he should be ashamed of himself, and he should apologize, okay?
We're going to tax you 25%. And I could say another, listen, you motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
If you look at what countries like China are doing to this country, they are eating our lunch. We're building China because everything we make is made in China or other countries. It's not made here. We don't make things anymore. We don't make, as an example, I ordered thousands of windows the other week, a couple of weeks ago. They're made in China. I said, does anybody make windows like in this country, in North Carolina, in Alabama, in Oregon, in places that used to make windows? They don't make them anymore. We're building China by ordering all of their products.
What is the single most
But Warsaw Windows, I did 40 Wall Street using Warsaw Windows. Great company. Say hello to Warsaw Windows for me, okay? Say hello. It's a great window. Actually, truthfully, it's one of the best windows made anywhere in the world, so it's good. Warsaw. I saw Warsaw. I said, oh, wait, I wonder, that's probably where they make the windows, because I order a lot of them and they come. But we did a whole building, 40 Wall Street, a big 72-story building, using, I think, 3,500 Warsaw windows. That's a lot of windows, right? Anyway. And there are no leaks. We have no leaks. Explain to them they have no leaks, so that's good. I should say they leak like hell and get a refund, right? I do that too. Sometimes. Cruz, Lion Ted, when he gets money, believe me, Lion Ted, Bible.
That's a line of clothing. Now, where were these made?
These were made, I don't know where they were made, but they were made someplace. But they're great. It's ties, shirts, cufflinks, everything sold at Macy's, and they're doing great. #1 selling tie anywhere in the world.
#1 selling tie anywhere in the world. You wouldn't wear that shirt?
We also have them in white and beautiful white.
Where are the shirts made? Bangladesh.
Well, it's good. Okay. We employ people in Bangladesh.
Ties? Where are the ties
they
made?
Have to work
These are beautiful ties.
They are great ties.
The ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
You know, George, I want to buy television sets here. I buy thousands of television sets a year. I have a lot of different projects, as you probably have heard. And I buy thousands of sets. I cannot buy a television set in this country.
But if you want other companies to make their products in America, shouldn't you make your products in America?
They don't make a lot of these products. They don't even make them here anymore.
But shouldn't you lead by example?
George, I told you, they don't even make this stuff here. When I want to buy...
Brooks Brothers does.
Other countries have taken our jobs. China has taken our jobs. Mexico is the new China. They are killing us on jobs. Japan, you look at what's happening with
separate class action lawsuits for defrauding students. He also lied in infomercials about it. He said that he had hand-selected or hand-picked instructors for the school, and then in a 2012 deposition, he testified that no, he in fact did not handpick anyone for the school, not a single instructor. Students have testified or even written articles and pieces about how you would go and they would immediately play on your fears and insecurities. They would talk about how no job is secure right now and that everyone's going to be poor unless they buy real estate and they do this.
I have nothing
do that.
against China. I just hate that their leaders are so much smarter than our leaders. 2016, we will not be the world leader anymore. We have been always. But in 2016, China becomes the great economic leader. Even if Mitt Romney is elected, he says that maybe you can turn it around. Well, do you think he could turn it around? I think we can. Do you think Mitt Romney can turn it around? I think he can.
What are we doing? I just ordered 4,000 television sets. 4,000. They come from South Korea. I have a
South
great
Korea
company. I've done a great job, which if I run, you'll see what a great job, because I'll do a full disclosure.
Would you actually
now are much better?
Would you release tax returns?
I would release tax returns, and I would also explain to people that as a person that's looking to make money, you know, I mean, borders, and they push them through our border because.
I got it, but I want to stay focused on the tax returns. How many years back?
The answer is yeah. I would do it. I mean, I would do
3 years, 5 years.
I will tell you up front. As a private person, I would be, and I'm very proud of this. I want to pay as little taxes as I can as a private person.
That's the American way, legally.
Why should I say I'm looking to pay a fortune in tax?
But how many years?
Part of the complexity of the tax system.
How many years back would you go on the day you announced? 3, 5?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I actually have not even thought of that. But I would certainly show tax returns if it was necessary.
At least a couple of years?
Well, what have they been doing? They've been really doing 1 year, other than people that never made anything. But I would certainly – I'm very proud of what I've done. I do pay tax, but I'm very proud of what I did. I will say this. You will see piles and piles and piles of paper stacked many feet into the air because the system is so complex that it's disgraceful.
That's I think 2 or 3 years would be great. I think anyone, if you did 2 or 3 years.
Well, we'll take a good strong look at that. I mean, it's not obviously it's not something I thought of, but I've given any real thought to. But I have no objection to certainly showing tax returns. I mean, Mitt has to get those tax returns out. I'm a little bit surprised that they weren't better prepared for that, but I assume everything's fine with the taxes, and I assume everything's fine with his returns. But he's going to be putting them out tomorrow, and that's probably something
Do you believe voters have a right to see your tax returns before they make a final decision?
I don't think they do, but I do say this. I will really gladly give them. They're not going to learn anything, but it's under routine audit. When the audit present them, that should be before the election. I hope it's before the election. But when the audit...
I will absolutely give my return, but I'm being audited now for 2 or 3 years. Until my audit is finished, very simple, you're not going to see anything. You never give a tax return
First of
when
all,
you're being audited.
by the IRS does not mean that you cannot release your tax returns, as many brilliant economists and even tax professionals have admitted.
What the financials don't show also is your tax rate. They don't show whether you paid a low tax rate or no tax rate.
I find very hard to pay as little tax as possible, and I've said that for the last 2 years. I fight very hard because this country wastes our money. They take our tax money and they throw it down the drain. They spend $4 trillion in the Middle East, and we can't fix a road or a bridge. And I fight very hard. I consider it an expense because, frankly, our country doesn't know what they're doing with our money or our tax money.
But there is a deeper reason why Donald Trump does not want us to have access to his tax returns. And that reason is because he's likely not paying any taxes at all. According to a report in the Washington Post, we can go ahead and assume this because that's what has happened with Donald Trump in the past. In the 1970s, for at least 2 years in a row, Donald Trump did not pay any money in taxes those years, because he reported negative income for both years. Begs the question, if he has nothing to hide, why would he not release those tax returns? There is absolutely no logical reason whatsoever other than the likelihood that he's not paying any taxes. Or, perhaps even more likely, he doesn't want the public to know that he is not quite as wealthy as he keeps telling us, which is also very possible.
As you know, Mr. Trump, the audit is no excuse. The IRS has made it very clear that an audit is not a bar to public release. It is entirely your choice. President Nixon, Richard Nixon, released his tax returns even though he was under audit. And when you were seeking a casino license in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you released the returns to the state officials even though you were under audit.
I am under audit now, and as soon as the audit ends, I'll release my returns. It's a very simple thing.
Sir,
if you look at many others feel the same way. And almost every lawyer will tell you the same thing. When you're under audit, you finish the audit before you release. I have no problem. And it should be, and I hope it's before the election.
But, sir, if you were willing to release...
And by the way, people are going to learn nothing. You know, I put in financials, 100 pages worth of financials that show that I built a company that's worth more than $10 billion. It shows cash, it shows cash flows, it shows everything. You learn very little from tax returns, but nevertheless, when the audit is complete, I will release. I have no problem with it.
A couple of follow-ups to that, though. If you were willing to release your tax returns to get a casino license, why shouldn't voters see them before they make you commander-in-chief?
Well, because at the time it didn't make any difference to me. Now it does. If you take a look at the picture that we sent you, where the tax returns are probably 10 feet high when you stack them on top, and linked and very complex. I built a massive...
But in reality, Donald Trump is just like every other corporation and business person operating in the United States today in the top 1%. He is likely not paying any taxes because that's what we've created for this wealthy elite. We've made the system so rigged and so easy to maneuver through that these people, these billionaires and millionaires, usually do not have to pay any taxes. We've seen it from large corporations year after year, and Trump Industries, or whatever he calls it, is no different. They write off things that shouldn't be written off. They park money offshore. They do all kinds of legal maneuvers to get away with not paying anything. Meanwhile, the rest of us have to pick up the tab, and the federal government's left with less money to do things like repair our roads and bridges, pay for schools, pay for firefighters and police officers. Those are the things that Donald Trump and the wealthy elite of the Republican Party don't think are important. It's more important for these people to have a few extra dollars in their pocket than it is for children all over this country to get an education. And that's what you get if you elect.
There have been many presidents that have not shown their tax returns.
Actually, every single nominee since 1976 has released their tax
but before
returns.
1976, most people didn't do it. I mean, it used to be a secret thing. I don't want it to be secret, but I do want the audit to get finished.
Before that, Richard Nixon released his returns, as I said, even though they were under. But to get to your point, on the one hand, you show that stack of tax returns. On the other hand, you say that people can't learn anything from them. They can actually learn quite a lot. They can learn your sources of income. They can learn whether you have any foreign sources of income or whether you have any Swiss bank accounts or other offshore accounts.
All time. What's my first favorite book? The Bible. The Bible. And as much as I love The Art of the Deal, it's not even close. We take the Bible all the way, right? Okay, thanks.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture.
Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty.
Donald Trump today trumpeting his faith.
I wrote many bestsellers like The Art of the Deal. I always say a deep, deep second to the Bible. The Bible is the best, the Bible. The Bible blows it away.
Giving the convocation at Liberty University and in an attempt to connect with evangelical students, quoting from Scripture.
Right? 2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ball game.
But wrongly referring to it as 2 Corinthians instead of 2 Corinthians, drawing laughter from the religious crowd. It's just one of a series of stumbles Trump has made attempting to court the powerful.
One or two of your most favored Bible verses are, and why?
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite?
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like?
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible, the whole Bible is an incredible, I joke, very much so. They always hold up The Art of the Deal. I say my second
He's
favorite
not the
book of all
textbook
time.
definition of a God-fearing man, with the insults,
What a stiff.
the ego,
That means I'm a star. That's a star.
The excess.
I'm really rich.
3 marriages and an empire built in part on greed.
And we have water, and it's a very successful, it's a private little water company, and I supply the water for all my places, and it's good. And we have Trump steaks. And by the way, if you want to take one, we'll charge you about, $50 a steak. He said, Trump Magazine is out. I said, it is? I thought I read one 2 days ago. This comes out, and it's called The Jewel of Palm Beach. The airline, by the way, I sold the airline. He said, Trump Airline. Well, I sold the airline, and I actually made a great deal. But we have a lot of great people who want to get back into Trump University. It's going to do very well. And by the way, the winery, you see the wine, because he mentioned Trump vodka. It's the largest winery on the East Coast. I own it 100%, no mortgage, no debt. You can all check. You have to go check the records, folks. In fact, the press, I'm asking you, please check.
Every single thing he said there was untrue. Every single thing.
He totally knew about it. It was done by people that he knows very well.
Well, it was not Ted Cruz or his campaign. So is your standard is that if it...
No, I'm just telling you, he knew.
To several interviewers prior to the Charlie Sykes, Donald Trump got away with saying repeatedly that Ted Cruz was responsible for running the Super PAC ad that included a picture of Donald Trump's wife. That is the kind of thing he gets away with all the time in TV interviews.
South Carolina, who is absolutely terrible. She covered my speech. I made a speech to the African American Chamber of Commerce in South Carolina. Yes. Wonderful people. And the room was full. Every seat was full.
Every seat full? Not so much. This picture was taken while Mr. Trump was speaking. Here's some video around the same time. Notice he's on stage. And notice the many empty seats in the back of the room. Again, Mr. Trump.
When I went to the stage, everybody rushed forward. They all rushed to the front of the room. It was a ballroom. They all rushed to the front of the room. And when they did that, you had half of the seats in the back were empty because everybody was standing in the front.
For the record, not everyone was standing, and the empty seats were empty because they were never occupied. We weren't the only ones who noticed. This New York Times headline reads, "A day of empty seats and Donald Trump in full attack." The Washington Post headline, "Donald Trump says he didn't speak to a half-empty room, but he did." The Post's writer, Philip Bump, noted Trump's comments about our reporting, then fact-checked it, posting this photo from the Associated Press. Notice all the empty seats? Trump is at the podium. The Post noted this one too. Some people standing, most not. The Post summed it up this way. CNN's assessment appears to have been the correct one. We also pointed out in our reporting that the event was sponsored by the South Carolina African American Chamber of Commerce, but the crowd was overwhelmingly white, with only a handful of African Americans. But on CNN's New Day, Donald Trump denied that too.
Well, they had many African Americans. They had many white people too.
Here's another angle of the crowd. Note the ethnicity. And yet another angle. In television, pictures tell the story.
Donald Trump presents a challenge that the media has never seen before. How do you cover a pathological liar who is the front runner for a major party presidential nomination?
But according to NBC, Trump has given just about $75,000 to veterans groups out of the $5 million donated by the foundation, his foundation, since 2010. He never cared about veterans. All of a sudden, he's exploiting them for his own political gain. And people are totally buying into it. It's insane.
Minimum wage. All through the primaries, you're against an increase. Now you're saying you're looking at it. So what's your bottom line?
Well, I am looking at it, and I haven't decided in terms of numbers, but I think people have to get more.
But that's a change from where you were during the primaries.
Sure, it's a change. I'm allowed to change. You need flexibility, George, whether it's a tax plan where you know you're going to negotiate.
78% of his statements checked by PolitiFact are ranked as mostly false, or pants on fire. He is currently facing a lawsuit for his fraudulent Trump University, which was neither a university nor taught by Trump himself.
We started looking at Trump University and discovered that it was a classic bait and switch scheme. It was a scam.
Though this did not keep him from pocketing the money scammed from his own fans and supporters. He was for the Iraq War before he was against it.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so.
By the time the war started, I was against the war.
He was pro-choice before he was pro-life.
I'm very pro-choice. So for those folks that are pro-life, I can fully, I concur with you 100%.
and he has repeatedly claimed not to be a politician while running for president. Just because someone speaks bluntly and aggressively doesn't mean they're being honest.
On the taxes on the wealthy, you're saying you're willing to pay more.
I am willing to pay more, and you know what? Wealthy are willing to pay more. We've had a very good run. You know, we hear all about Obama. We hear all about. We've had a very good run.
So pay as little tax as possible.
What is your tax rate?
It's none of your business. You'll see it.
That would be a big change from your plan.
No, it's not a change, George. It's a negotiation. Remember this. If I could get my plan approved the way it is now, I'd be very happy. It's not going to happen because we have a lot of people that are going to be negotiating this, and they don't do very well. The world, if you look at the United States with tax plans, not a lot happens. It just sort of stays the same. It's a big quagmire. One of the things I'm getting is big simplification. We're getting the lower rates. We're getting a lot of things, but we're getting massive simplification. We're getting rid of carried interest, which is, you know, not going to make hedge fund people happy.
But those people are actually going to be paying less taxes under your plan because even though you're getting rid of the loophole, you're taxing it as regular income.
We're getting rid of a loophole. Yeah, but George, by the time...
It's going to go down from 23 to 15%.
George, by the time it gets negotiated, it's going to be a different plan. And, you know, I like to have my cards on the table.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I wish it was. I wish the first time.
But I said don't hit Iraq because you're going to totally destabilize the Middle East. Iran is going to take over the Middle East. Iran and somebody else will get the oil. And it turned out that Iran is now taking over Iraq.
My son has spent years now, numerous terms, over in Iraq. And he's an unbelievable young guy. And I brought him in. I wanted to talk to him about it. They're very despiritized. And he said the equipment that the American soldiers have is not as good as what the enemy has. I said, how can that be? And they have our equipment. Because the enemy takes over the equipment that the other ones are using, our so-called allies are using when they drop it and they run. They run for their lives. And the enemy picks up our equipment. 2,000 Humvees that armor-plated, the best in the world. And we have stuff without armor plating.
Last week I read 2,300 Humvees. These are big vehicles were left behind for the enemy. 2,000, you would say maybe 2, maybe 4. 2,300 sophisticated vehicles they ran, and the enemy took them.
The establishment is the corrupt system in which billionaire campaign financiers and corporate lobbyists buy spineless politicians with legalized bribes, and in so doing erode the principle at the core of any democratic system, which is the idea that the ultimate power of government should rest in the people. The corruption anti-establishment voices oppose is the power of the super rich to buy the government. Rather than opposing the corruption of the establishment, the Trump campaign simply makes it more efficient. Rather than having billionaires and corporations buy candidates, in this case, the billionaire head of a corporation is himself running for office. A Trump presidency would represent a merger of big money interests and government power greater than anything the Koch brothers ever dared dream. And while we're in this general area, let's talk about the idea that Trump is self-funding his campaign.
And I'm totally self-funding my campaign.
In point of fact, he loaned his campaign $17.5 million while giving only about $250,000. All of the money that he loaned his campaign, he can actually give back to himself. And the Trump campaign actually has a significant amount of money that did not come from Donald himself. His campaigns actually raised $7.5 million from individual contributions. Money taken in by his supporters, who, by the way, are very likely to believe that the mainstream media is unfair to him. Actually, the only reason Trump has managed to survive in the race without dumping large amounts of money into ads is all the free media he receives from mainstream media news outlets.
Support for single-payer health care. You've also supported a host of other liberal policies. You've also donated to several Democratic candidates, Hillary Clinton included, Nancy Pelosi. You explained away those donations, saying you did that to get business-related favors. And you said recently, quote, when you give, they do whatever the hell you want them to do.
You better believe it.
So what specifically did they do?
If I ask them, if I need them, you know, most of the people on this stage I've given to, just so you understand. A lot of money.
Not me.
Not me.
But you're welcome to give me a check, Donald, if you'd like.
Many of them.
Actually, to be clear,
That's
he
right.
supported
Not-
Charlie Crist.
Not Mike.
Gave Charlie
But
Crist.
I have.
Donald, if you end
I
your
have
campaign, I hope you will give to me.
Good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me, Governor. I will tell you that our system is broken. I give to many people. Before 2 months ago, I was a businessman. I give to everybody. When they call, I give. And you know what? When I need something from them 2 years later, 3 years later, I call them. They are there for me. And that's a broken system.
How much he loves the veterans. We had a 31-year Navy veteran on this program some months ago who sued Donald Trump for fraud over a condo development in Southern California, sued him in Southern California federal court, condo development in Mexico. Let's listen to what he said. I asked him about, as a military veteran, about his reaction to Donald Trump's, the way Donald Trump talks about military veterans. Let's listen to that. You couldn't have given more years of service to your country, over 30-year veteran of the military. When you hear him talking about how he wants to take care of veterans, what's your reaction to that?
My reaction is Donald Trump is putting on a con. That's all it is. He conned us. He's a con man. What else can I say?
For and contributed to veterans groups.
I wanted to keep it private. If we could, I wanted to keep it private because I don't think it's anybody's business if I want to send money to the vets.
That's how Donald Trump began talking about this today. And that is why he has repeatedly been diagnosed by his campaign opponents and psychiatric experts as a pathological liar. Here's the guy who just said, I wanted to keep it private. Here he is, back when he wanted to keep it private. On January 28th, when he skipped the Fox News debate because he was afraid of getting Megyn Kelly questions, and he held what he called a fundraiser, a public fundraiser on TV for veterans. Here is how private he tried to keep it.
I called some friends, and we just cracked, the sign was just given, we just cracked $6 million, right? $6 million. Donald Trump gave $1 million, okay?
Only a very, very sick person could stand in front of a microphone on national television and say that on January 28th, brag about raising $6 million and brag about contributing $1 million himself, both of which were untrue. And then today, say this.
I wanted to keep it private. If we could, I wanted to keep it private. Because I don't think it's anybody's business if I want to send money to the
Well,
vets.
as far as we know, he has never filed for personal bankruptcy. He has filed at least 4 times for corporate bankruptcy. And although that's a fact, Trump continues to threaten to sue nearly anyone who brings the matter up.
Filed for bankruptcy protection 3 times in 6 years.
Okay, let me explain it to you. Very simple.
Isn't that a failure?
Not really. I mean, look, it worked out very well for me. It was very successful. I then levered the company. I took it public. So I had a relatively small piece of the company. And what happened is Philadelphia.
Wait a second, you were chairman of the board.
Excuse me.
You were chairman of the board.
I was chairman, but I didn't run the company. I had nothing to do with running the company. Management ran
You were
the
paid
company.
$2 million a year.
Excuse me. I didn't run the company. I'm just telling you.
So what were you paid
Now, let
$2
me
million
explain
a
something.
year for?
Excuse me. Because of my genius.
Straight up
okay?
scam.
His whole career is a scam. Like every single thing he does is scam on top of scam. Look, how would anyone know about real estate, a guy like Donald Trump, when they bankrupted 4 companies centered around real estate? Now, they make excuses for him now, his supporters do, and they say, oh, no, that was a savvy business move to go bankrupt and to take advantage of the laws that are available in America. You know what's a savvier business move? Not going bankrupt.
There are also some ongoing lawsuits in which investors in Trump projects are suing you, claiming they were deceived. They thought they were buying into a Trump project and discovered it was only a licensing deal. Trump Tower, Tampa. You were down there for the groundbreaking. You said this was going to be a spectacular project that was going to redefine Tampa's skyline. In fact, you weren't an investor in the project at all, and it's never been built.
It was just a licensing deal. I was not the developer of those sites. I licensed the name Trump to those buildings. In case you haven't heard, there was a market collapse.
And these people did better than most other people in Florida because they got some of their money back, and they may get more of it back.
Entertainment resorts, which went bankrupt in 2009. In that case alone, lenders to your company lost over $1 billion and more than 1,100 people were laid off.
Well, because we didn't know there was any rules or regulations about using the name university. We didn't check that out. I think probably they felt that we would have qualified. If we didn't qualify, that's fine. We changed the name.
And people would pay money to hear it.
Sure, they pay money. Why? Am I supposed to do it for free?
Well, people have to pay, as I understand it, up to $35,000 for the gold seminars.
State regulators all over the country have gotten complaints about this. There is a class action lawsuit being filed by former students in California. And as we reported in the piece last night, the Texas Attorney General's office had opened up an investigation into possible deceptive trade practices against Trump University, and only dropped it after Trump University told the state attorney general's office they would stop doing business in Texas. In effect, they dropped out of Texas entirely.
Because we're losing a lot of people because of the internet. And we have to do something. We have to go see Bill Gates and a lot of different people that really understand what's happening. We have to talk to them, maybe in certain areas, closing that internet up in some way. Somebody will say, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech.
The presumptive Republican nominee says he is revoking the Washington Post's credential to cover his campaign. In a Facebook post, Mr. Trump said, based on the incredibly inaccurate coverage and reporting of the record-setting Trump campaign, we are hereby revoking the press credentials of the phony and dishonest Washington Post. Well, the Post's executive editor, Marty Baron, released a statement in response saying Donald Trump's decision to revoke the Washington Post's press credentials is nothing less than a repudiation of the role of a free and independent press. When coverage doesn't correspond to what the candidate wants it to be, then a news organization is banished. The Post will continue to cover Donald Trump as it has all along, honorably, honestly, accurately, energetically, and unflinchingly. We're proud of our coverage, and we're going to keep at it.
Under the 14th Amendment, O'Reilly told Trump on the O'Reilly Factor, mass deportations of so-called birthright citizens cannot happen. Trump disagreed.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that's okay. I want surveillance. And you know what? We've had it before and we'll have it.
And one of my favorite lies that Trump tells is that he is the least racist person.
Are you racist?
I am the least racist person. I am the least racist person.
Two he picks on, Hispanic last names. And the one he goes after most viciously, Tom Yamas, Hispanic last name.
If presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump follows through with his plan to deport millions of undocumented immigrants from the U.S., it would cost the economy hundreds of billions of dollars, according to a study released Thursday, May 5th by the American Action Forum, a conservative think tank. According to government statistics, there are more than 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S., with roughly 6.8 million of those employed in the private sector in 2012. That accounts for 5.6% of employed people in the private sector. The study found that deporting them would reduce private sector output by up to $623 billion. It would also lower the country's real gross domestic product by more than $1 trillion. The think tank points out that the industries that would be most affected include agriculture, construction, and leisure and hospitality. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
Love him. So why would they be biased against him? So by his own admission, you know, if you believe Donald Trump, which good luck to you in your life, if you believe Donald Trump, if the Mexicans love him, why would he bring up that he's Mexican? The only reason he'd bring it up is because he wants to bring up his race out of nowhere to say you shouldn't trust a Mexican or you shouldn't trust a Mexican because I've already said racist.
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
Someone who has repeatedly retweeted white power groups and has secured their endorsements.
I have a judge who is a hater of Donald Trump. A hater, he's a hater. Very
loves to
eloquent.
repeat, yeah.
But he said these things at a rally in San Diego. He also says, we're in front of a very hostile judge. The judge was appointed by Barack Obama, Trump said, adding he believed Curiel was Mexican. The reality is Curiel was born in Indiana. And he's
But when you gratuitously bring up his background based on his name, well, you bring, I mean...
What's the point of bringing that up? I mean, the only reason why he's bringing that up is because he thinks the judge possibly being of Mexican descent is a negative thing. He sees it as a negative thing. And so he antagonizes him for possibly having a Mexican background. It's ridiculous. Trump said, and by the way, another during this rally was that he thinks the judge should be investigated. He was asked, okay, well, what do you think the judge should be investigated for? No idea. And that's the thing that drives me crazy. He makes statements like that, and his voters support him. There's no substance to his statements. There's no defense for what he did in scamming these students. He was asked why he antagonized the judge, and his answer was, because I don't care. That's not an answer. He's running for president. That's not an answer.
That's the answer a child gives. I don't care.
You're not answering my question.
No, Jake, you don't understand. Like, Trump says all the things that, like, we all want to say, but he has, like, the guts to say them. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that, nothing drives me crazier than that stupid-ass argument. You know what? Then we can have a middle schooler be our next president, because middle schoolers say shit that they really
This is not ideological. This doesn't have to do with whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or liberal or conservative. The man is a pathological liar. Most politicians, they say things that aren't true from time to time. That's true Democrats, that's true Republican. He is in a class by himself. And you know, it's very dangerous for him to become president. I think we just have to keep reminding people.
The only Republican presidential nominee in history who, while campaigning, is facing fraud charges in New York and California. One in a case brought by the New York State Attorney General, and the other in a class action suit on behalf of students who say man tactics.
I love the Mexican people. I love the spirit of the Mexican people. We charge Mexico $100,000 for every person they send over.
I mean, this is what's wrong. He buys and sells politicians of all stripes. He's already, hey, look, he's already hedging his bet on the Clintons, okay? So if he doesn't run as a Republican, maybe he supports Clinton or maybe runs as an independent. Okay. But I'd say that he's already hedging his bets because he's used to buying politicians.
Well, I've given him plenty of money.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer...
Mr. Trump, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer my question, which was, what evidence do you have, specific evidence, that the Mexican government is sending criminals across the border? 30 seconds.
Border Patrol, I was at the border last week. Border Patrol people that I deal with, that I talk to, they say this is what's happening because our leaders are stupid, our politicians are stupid, and the Mexican government is much smarter, much sharper, much more cunning, and they send the bad ones over because they don't want to pay for them, they don't want to take care of them. Why should they when the stupid leaders of the United States will do it for them? And that's what's happening, whether you like it or not.
Clinton and Nancy Pelosi?
Well, I'll tell you what, with Hillary Clinton, I said, be at my wedding, and she came to my wedding. You know why? She had no choice because I gave.
You know,
probably there are
every presidential candidate has a go-to.
Probably there are two or three. I mean, I like Bolton. I think he's tough cookie, knows what he's talking about. Jacobs is a good guy.
You mean Ambassador John Bolton?
Yes.
You mean Colonel Jack Jacobs?
Colonel Jack Jacobs is a good guy, and I see him on occasion.
So he watches television for his military advice. What do Hogan's Heroes think? Maybe we should consult them. I'm amazed, man. He asked, do you have military advisors? He says, yeah, probably 2 or 3. In other words, no. What do you mean, probably? You either have military advisors or you don't. When asked to name who the military...
You got to see this guy. I don't know what I said. I I don't remember.
Here's some Donald Trump stickers for you.
No, he's a perfect example of someone who exploits disadvantaged people for his own political campaign. That's exactly what he did during that veterans rally. You think he cares about veterans? He was trying to make a point about how much he hates Megyn Kelly, and he was trying to skip out on that debate and make a good name for himself by creating a rally for veterans. But look, first of all, there's no evidence that he raised $6 million. He claims he donated $1 million of his own money. One of his campaign employees donated allegedly $500,000 of his own money. And he claims that he's going to split up what they've raised among 22 veteran organizations.